mentioning of ass in a book. I just didn't understand it. I can't even think about it. This definitely broadened my horizons. I couldn't pick between which one I liked best, and all these light pink ones are giggling and kicking my feet. Hello and welcome back to a brand new video. I made myself a vanilla latte, which is very good. Today's video I'm going to attempt to do a June reading wrap up. It is now the 26th of July, so it's obviously a long time since I read these books and my brain is drawing up a blank, but I'm going to do my best to remember and review these books. It will probably be a little bit shorter than usual just because I can only remember key points after this much time. I am going to refer back to my Goodreads reviews that I wrote as I finished them to kind of jog my memory. And if you've never seen any of my videos before, then hello, my name is Leanne. I share home, lifestyle and book content here on YouTube. And like I say, today's video is going to be a book video with the June reading wrap up. So we will jump in with book one, which was Diabound by Sable Sorensen. I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It's set in a world that is at war. They're at war with some kind of vampire-like creature, and the world itself is very separated. There are parts of it that are living quite poor with very little food, and there are other parts that are living life in luxury basically. And FMC Merrin is living in poverty. Her dad was in the war and he died, so she is living just with her mum and her sister, and her mum has mental health issues, so she's basically her mum's carer and raising her sister. And then in the city where they live, children are currently going missing, and her sister ends up being one of the children that are taken. So FMC Merrin joins the army in order to get her back basically. When she joins the army though, she is thrown into the deadly bonding trials because there's a segment of the army that are bonded to dire wolves, and there is a trial to see whether the new recruits are fit to be direbound themselves. So Merrin has to take part in these. She's very reluctant in the beginning, but then ends up being bound to a wolf. The wolf doesn't seem to like her very much though, so we obviously see that relationship develop over the book, which I really liked. And also there's 2 love interests in this book. One of them she's in a relationship with from the very beginning, so that relationship is not the one I liked the most because obviously I like a slow burn and they're already in love in the beginning, so I didn't get slow burn from that. But the other love interest, Stark, is definitely giving enemies to lovers vibes, and there is a whole lot of tension that I enjoyed very much. I just loved this book. It took me a long time to read it. I was in a bit of a reading slump. I was struggling to actually read and fully get into things, but once I did, that was on me. That wasn't on the story and how good the story was. The story was brilliant. I was enjoying it from the very beginning. I just myself was struggling to be very focused, like to focus on things at that time. So it took me a long time to read, but I loved all of it. There was nothing that I didn't like in this book. I love a story with bonded creatures, obviously in this case wolves, and I think if you loved Fourth Wing, this could potentially be a favourite for you, because it did give Fourth Wing vibes, but obviously with wolves instead of dragons. It kind of has an academy setting because they are in like a training camp. There is found family, which you know that I love in a book, and the world building is just really interesting. And as things progress in the story, we obviously learn a lot more about the world, and then we also learn that not everything is as it seems, and there's a lot more going on than we even know or think. The end was super twisty. I loved it. It ended on quite a cliffhanger, so I am very glad that Furybound is on my shelf ready for when I want to read it. This could potentially be a god tier series for me. It is really good. I really liked it, and I cannot wait to continue with this. I don't know how many books are going to be in it. Is it going to be a trilogy? A very good story and a very good start to a series. I then read Catabasis, which is one of my 26 books for 2026, and I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't my favourite read, and there were a few reasons for this. The overall story was really good. So there is a college, I don't know what, she's like a student, but also she teaches. That whole college setting confuses me. And her professor has died and gone to hell, and she decides to travel to hell to get him back. And then her colleague finds out that she's doing this and says, I'm coming with you. So they're on this journey to hell together, and they have to travel through the levels of hell and obviously come across different obstacles along the way that they have to solve and work on. The magic concept is very interesting because it treats magic as like a learned skill rather than something that you're born with. It's something that you can learn, and it's like I can't remember what it is called, but like say you're a mathematician, or the set thing that you go to college to learn. So they are magicians and they are at college to learn the art of magic. They're studying at Cambridge. The story where they learn more about the professor, more about what's happened on the run up to his death, and then obviously the things that they encounter on their journey through hell. It's all very interesting, and there is a love story that develops throughout as well. Again, good. Not like a mind-blowing love story, it's a sweet love story. It's good. The thing that threw me with this book is that the whole concept of the story is that they use real life articles, stories and theories to explain the concept of magic. So throughout the book they keep referring to these articles, to these theories. Obviously they're Cambridge students. These theories that they are referring to are quite complex, and it just lost me. The theories they would use to explain magic and then also explain loopholes in magic, absolutely, my brain was not getting it at all. It was like, you know the theory Schrodinger's cat, where whilst the cat's in the box, it's both dead and alive because you don't know until you look in the box. The theories were those kind of theories, and it was just losing me. Like, I don't know. My brain clearly is not intelligent enough to grasp the concept or understand what they were saying. And every time they were just going on and on about these theories or referring to Dante's Inferno. Is that a story? I don't know, it was just too much. I'm just not clever enough. I think that's what the problem is. I was not clever enough for this book, and the overly intelligent parts just kept pulling me out the story because I just didn't know what the hell was going on. Which is a shame because, like I say, the concept was brilliant. It was beautifully written. It just overall wasn't for me. I can't say that it's a bad book. It's 3 stars because it just wasn't for me, but somebody else would read this and I think absolutely love it. So as always, I always say try books for yourself, because just because I wouldn't like it does not mean that you wouldn't like it. Obviously this book was a bestseller and many people thought it was incredible, and it was to a certain point, but I just didn't understand it. That's it. I just didn't understand half of it. The next book that I read, this is very unusual for me. I always try to be fair with my reviews, but this was a 1 star. I cannot recommend this book. I did not enjoy it at all. There were so many things that I did not like about this book, and it was The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner. This is the first book I've ever read by her, and I've not seen anyone talking about this book, but I have seen other people talking about other books by Candy Steiner and raving about them. So maybe I need to try other books of hers, but this one, I just didn't enjoy it. So basically our FMC is dealing with a lot of issues to do with her ex, and she has season tickets to the football, and she decides to use this opportunity to join a dating site and get a new date slash hookup for each match. So she basically just wants to have a good time, move on from her ex, isn't looking for anything serious at all. But she is at a bar talking about this plan with her friend, and the barman overhears, and he suggests that he goes with her for the first match in order for her to have a practice run, basically. So the premise of the story is quite fun. The issues that I didn't like was, number one, the MMC. I did not like him. It was dual POV, and he was just thinking about the way she looked constantly, her boobs, her physical appearance. He was very much focused on the visual rather than the emotional. He decides he's in love with her very quickly without any kind of reasoning behind it. The spice was not for me. There were 2 sentences that I put into my Goodreads review. In fact, I'll just read what I wrote. The spice was not for me. A sentence I never want to encounter during a spicy scene is, and then he was eating my ass. I do know that is 100% personal preference, but I do not want any mentioning of ass in a book in a spicy scene. I don't like it. I don't like it. And some people might like that and read that in a book and be perfectly happy for it to be there. But then the other thing that I said was, when they finished up in said spicy scene though, MMC says, "Goddamn little girl." Do not ever refer to a grown-ass woman as a little girl in any setting, but especially when you've just finished having sex. No, that was ick straight away. No. And then as the story got towards the end, I didn't like how she finally reveals to him her trauma and what happened with her ex and why she isn't looking for a serious relationship. And then what he does in return is bring up some trauma of his own, which I don't think you should ever do. I think if someone tells you their trauma that they've kept hidden or really struggled to talk about, he basically said, yeah, you've got trauma, so what? So have I. Which I didn't like at all. And then finally, the grand gesture at the end made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I just didn't get it. I didn't get the grand gesture. I didn't see the point of the grand gesture. It was a disappointing ending to a disappointing book. But try it for yourself. As always, try it for yourself. You might like it. You might like it. Then I moved on to The Rebel Witch, which is the second book in the Crimson Moth duology. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I'm really struggling to remember what happened in this book, to be honest, but I know that I really enjoyed it at the time, and I think that's because I listened to it as an audiobook. I've been listening to audiobooks, I would say the last two months, and as much as I enjoy listening to an audiobook, it's very obviously handy when I need to work or do some cleaning or whatever. I don't have to put my book down, I can carry on listening to it, but I do not absorb the information as much as when I'm physically reading it, because a book that I physically read, I can recall what happened. Obviously after a long time I do forget things, but I can recall the basics of what happened. But the books that I listen to as audio, I can't recall the information as much. And so when it comes to The Rebel Witch, I can tell you that I gave it 4 stars, and I can tell you that I enjoyed it, but the specifics have gone. They have gone from my brain. So referring back to my Goodreads review, I really liked the magic system. I remember that I liked the magic system. There are witches and they use their blood, someone else's blood, to draw symbols on their skin, and that's how the magic happens. And then also in this world, the witches are being hunted and killed. Our FMC Rune? I'm sure her name's Rune. She is a witch, and in the beginning she was she still is trying to save the witches from the witch hunters, basically. But then because of everything that happened in book 1, she is now not in her world. I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to remember. She's not in her world. So the MMC is hunting her yet again. He was hunting her in book 1, and then because of what happened, he's now hunting her again. I really enjoyed the romance between these two characters. It is not a heavily spicy book. There is slight spice, but it's very tame. It's more romantic spice than anything super spicy. I said the word spice a lot of times just then. And overall, the story was really interesting. There was a lot of plot twists. I will say that the plot twists, you could see them coming. Every single one, you could see them coming. But I think that was the author wanted that to happen. Like, I feel like the clues were there. They were blatantly there. The clues are there for you to work out so that you know what's happening and you can see what's coming. So the enjoyment isn't in the shock, the wow factor. The enjoyment's in the detecting as you're reading it. That's how I read it or perceived it anyway. And I loved how all of the little clues and the little plot twists and everything added up to conclude the story. It was a really good ending. I really enjoyed it. I liked the characters. I liked the magic system. I liked the stories. The details, gone from my brain. I do know that I would recommend it though, and it was enjoyable. I do know that. The next book, again, this is another audiobook, so I am going to struggle to recall the details, but it was Empire of Flame and Thorns, which is book 1 in the Flame and Thorn series by Marion Blackwood. I gave it 4 stars. I know that I enjoyed this. I know that I had a fun time. I remember listening to it whilst I was making my cakes, and I was laughing along and having a fun time, giggling, kicking my feet. The story itself, so there's FMC Selena, and she is part of the rebel plot because where she lives, they're all fae, and they are under the control of the dragon riders. Dragon shifters, actually. Not dragon riders, dragon shifters. They are under the control of the dragon shifters. And every however many years, there are some trials for fae to take part in and win their freedom from the dragon shifters. So our FMC Selena takes part in these trials because she wants to win her freedom. She has a certain set of powers that have found her quite alienated from everyone around her because she can control emotions. So nobody trusts her to not use her power on them and not manipulate their emotions, basically. So she's very secluded from life and people because of this. She has a bad relationship with her parents as well because of this. When she was young and she couldn't control her powers, it affected their marriage, and therefore they are quite resentful for her and don't spend a lot of time with her. So she goes and takes part in these trials, and she meets our MMC, whose name is, I didn't write his name down, which means it's gone forever, but he is a dragon shifter, and there is a lot of tension between them. He is trying to sabotage her in the trials, and she doesn't know why. I did enjoy the tension between the two of them, but I do wish that it had been a bit more slow burn, just because this is a 5-book series and things moved very fast to say this is only book 1 in that series, but we shall see how their relationship progresses in other books. This was an enemies to lovers, back to enemies arc, so there is potential for things to still keep going romance-wise in the next books. The spice itself was okay. It was very descriptive with the words. Like, sometimes I find spice scenes too descriptive. I don't know how to describe this. So like, it's very, he put this body part here and then that body part there and then this body part here. It's very disjointed. I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say. I'm just not getting the words out very well. There were a lot of body parts repeated over and over again in short spaces of time. So like a 3-sentence section, and the word clit had been said like 6 times in those 3 sentences. It was just too much with the words, and the words chosen were too repetitive. They needed a thesaurus. A spicy scene thesaurus. There was nothing mind-blowing in this book. It was quite predictably romantasy, but I had fun listening to it, and That's what I put my star ratings on, not by how it's written, but how it made me feel. And I had a good time reading it, or listening to it, I should say. So that is why I gave it 4 stars. I can't guarantee that it's going to blow your mind though, but you might have a fun time. Oh my gosh, the next book, Sunrise on the Reaping. This was absolutely a 5-star book and it broke me. Haymitch's story, I can't even think about it. I can't even think about it. Obviously, if you've read The Hunger Games, which you've most likely going to before picking this book up, it is a prequel, but I feel like you need to know the story of The Hunger Games before you read this one. It follows Haymitch and the year he was taking part in The Hunger Games. Obviously, we know a lot of key points of his story from when Katniss and Peter watched his videos in whichever Hunger Games book it was. I don't know. The second one, I can't remember. But there were key points of his story that we already know. But what was so good in this book was seeing like those key points fleshed out, like finding out his whole story, because we know how it ends up for him. We know at the beginning of Hunger Games, he's a drunk and he's living a lonely life. He doesn't have any family. He doesn't have anything. He basically stays on his own in his house drinking, and he only comes out when he has to be the mentor, when he has to be the mentor during the Hunger Games. So we know what his ending is, but finding out how he got to that ending was just so heartbreaking. And that, like, the last couple of chapters and the epilogue, oh, I was just crying and crying and crying. It was emotional. It was an emotional read. I did read some other reviews by other people after I'd finished it, and a lot of people said that the author had used too many characters that we'd met before. So some of the characters we'd met in Hunger Games, she'd woven them into the story, and the reviews that I read said that they didn't like that. They felt it was a bit cash grab, like the whole concept of Haymitch's story, she'd just written it to make a bit more money. Personally, I loved that the characters had been woven into the story, because I love that feeling of nostalgia. Like with anything, with a prequel or a sequel, when the characters you already know and love turn up, you're like, yes, I love that. And that is, for me, I think that's brilliant. I'm glad that she did that. Some people saw that as a negative. I absolutely saw that as a positive. I loved seeing some of the characters we already knew and loved. And I just love a dystopian story. I just love it. These worlds that are so filled with horror, and how the people who are living these horrific lives never give up and always keep fighting. Oh, I could read dystopian over and over and over again. I love it. And I really hope that we get some more books in this world from Suzanne Collins. I would love Finnick's story, but there are so many characters' stories that we could get. But absolutely 5 stars. Absolutely 5 stars. Loved it. I then had a huge change in genres because I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is a romance. It's the first ever Emily Henry book I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was just the perfect summertime holiday romance, I think. This is a second chance romance. So our FMC and our MMC have split up. They have separated, but they haven't told their friends yet. And I don't know whether it's yearly, but there's a group of friends and they always go on holiday to this house together, and they still go on the holiday even though they're separated. So they're having to pretend to their friends that they're still together. So it's like fake relationship, second chance romance. And I just really love this story of finding each other again, finding love again. With this group of friends, there was obviously a lot of found family vibes and the story of friendship. I love that as well. It doesn't always have to be romance. The story of friendship is sometimes just as good. And this group of 3 girls who have found friendship and family in each other, I really liked that. It got me emotional. Could the story have been a lot shorter if they had just had an honest conversation with each other in the beginning? Yes. But I think that happens in so many books. That miscommunication trope is in most romance books. So yes, they just needed to have a good talk. But I enjoyed the story anyway. I gave it 4. Did I say I gave it 4 stars? Can't remember, but I gave it 4 stars. I then read Game Changer. This is book 1 in the Game Changer series. Obviously book 2 is well known. It's Heated Rivalry. I want to read Heated Rivalry, but I have to read them in order because that's just who I am. What did I think of this book? I almost DNF'd this book, I'm not gonna lie, because, I mean, I'm just gonna guess. I'm gonna put my hand in here because I don't know specifically, but this part of the book is them meeting up and having sex. And this part of the book is where they actually start having a conversation and an emotional relationship. This was too much. This was too much spice for me. There was no... They met each other and hooked up straight away. Then they just kept hooking up. They just kept hooking up over and over. There was never any conversation between them. It was just meeting up and hooking up, meeting up and hooking up. And then finally, they have an argument at about this point in the book. And then from there on, they actually start talking to each other and they actually develop an emotional connection. And the ending was good and emotional enough to save it for me. If it hadn't saved itself at the end, I would absolutely have not recommended this because it was just too much spice. Too much. And very graphic. And I'm not a graphic spice gal. And obviously it's romance. And as mentioned earlier in the other book, the ass stuff is not for me. It's not for me personally, but obviously in romance it's very much for them. So it was, my camera died and cut me off then, but as I was saying, this definitely broadened my horizons, let's just put it that way. I learned a lot about an relationship that I probably had never even thought about or considered before. But like I say, a highly graphic spice scenes or spice for the sake of spice is not for me in any kind of setting. So I did struggle with the book, but the ending did get me in the feels. I did feel the emotion of how their relationship develops, because it is for most of the book, they keep the relationship secret. And then obviously that's what kicks off the argument and everything that happens after that. I really enjoyed it and I loved the emotion. So I will be continuing with the series and I'll be a little bit more prepared for the heavy spice in future books. I also listened to the second book in the Flame and Thorn series, and that is called Throne of Ice and Blood by Marion Blackwood. I liked how this series is continuing. So like I say, we have Selena who can control emotions. She took part in the trials. The trials are now over and she did win. I cannot say too much about the storyline of this second book without spoiling what happens in the first book. But I will say that the world and the story is developing. We're getting a lot more information. I think the world in itself is going to end up being so much bigger, because right now we've only been like where Selena lives, where the trials take place, and then the dragon shifter kingdom that they're in this book too. But I feel there's so much more. I feel like we have a lot more to learn. The tension between the FMC and the MMC did continue. I did enjoy it. I just don't know how they're going to drag this on for 5 books though, because if they get to the point where they're just in love in like say book 3 and then books 4 and 5 they're together and there's still spice scenes, that doesn't do it for me. Once they're together, I'm no longer interested in your spice scenes. No longer interested. So we will see. I enjoyed book 2 though. Again, I gave it 4 stars. I forgot to say that. I gave it 4 stars. I then listened to Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. I was about halfway through listening to this when Sean bought me the physical copy, so that is why I have it now. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Originally I was going to give it 3 stars because the whole concept of this story is that the bad guys have won the war and the losers, the key players in the war on the losing side, have been put up for auction to be bid on and won and used in whatever way they see fit by the bad guys. So as you can tell, it's got quite dark themes. It is originally a Dramini fanfiction, so I have read the Dramini fanfiction of this book. I very much enjoyed it. You know I love a Dramini, and I think it's been adapted into this book very well. The reason I was going to go 3 stars in the beginning was I just feel like it could have been so much more with the whole auction theme. You know, like, he purchased her in auction, and yes, I don't want him to be a horrible guy who forces himself on her. I'm not into that, but there could have been a lot more tension because she starts to have feelings for him, and it's quite obvious, not to her, but from the reader's point of view, it's quite obvious that he is resisting her because he does have feelings for her. That's why he's bought her. That's why he's keeping her safe in his house. He loves her, even though that's not specifically said. It's quite easy to work out, so I don't think that's a spoiler. I wouldn't consider it a spoiler. So anyway, because he loves her, he won't let her act on her feelings that she's developing. Like, it's hard to describe. So there's like an elixir that will make the girls that have been purchased desperate for the men that have bought them, and he won't let her take that. He won't let her touch him very much. He won't let her do anything physical that isn't absolutely necessary. But I wanted that whole concept where she's been purchased in an auction. I wanted more of that. It's pretty dark maybe, but I just wanted more, and that's why I did initially give it 3 stars. But I tried to think again and rate it based on what it actually was rather than what I wanted it to be, and it is a very good story. The world building is very interesting. I did find it hard to disconnect it from the Hermione fanfiction, if I'm being honest. But obviously, if you've not already read The Auction, if you're just reading it as Rose in Chains, you wouldn't have that issue. Only I have that issue because I've already read it. But I gave it 4 stars because I love the whole premise of the darkness, the auction, and how messed up that is. I don't know. I did have one issue actually though, because obviously I don't know, maybe it is 3 stars. I don't know. 3 or 4 stars. I can't decide the rating on this. Anyway, the bad guy in the Hermione fanfiction is obviously Voldemort. In this version, she's decided to make the bad guy a woman, and I don't know how I feel about that, because in what world would a woman put other women up for auction? In what world would a woman deliberately... I don't feel like a woman would do all the things that the bad guy does in this book. I don't know, maybe that will become clearer as the story goes on, because it is a trilogy and this is only book 1. But I don't think the bad guy should be a woman. I have very mixed feelings about this book, clearly. I loved it, but there are some things that I wished were different. The next book that I finished was Shadowbound by Gabby Grahek, and I was sent an eARC copy of this. It is now released though and available on Kindle Unlimited. This is a story about vampires. It's a vampire fantasy romance, and our main character, Raver, her name is Raver, and you meet her at the beginning of the story. They believe that she's killed her husband and she is waiting to be executed for this crime. But she is part of high society, and high society can either choose to be executed or you can choose to go to the hive, which is where all the vampires live, and you will basically be a hive slave owned by the hive, usually as a food source. She is determined to be executed. That's it. She's done, life is over. But she gets a visitor while in prison, and he convinces / blackmails her into choosing the other option, and then she does in fact go with him to the hive, where it turns out she is not just going to be a hive slave, she's going to be the queen to the vampire king. So there's a lot of tension with the guy who picks her up and takes her to the hive. What is his name? I'm rubbish at names. I can't remember the guy's name, but one of the male characters is the guy that picks her up. He is her protector and her guard while she's in the court, and then the other guy is obviously the king of vampires, and I liked both of them. I'm not gonna lie, it's love triangle, not why choose, but I would have been very happy with a why choose in this situation, because I couldn't pick between which one I liked best. The thing I loved the most about this story is Raver and how she changes as the story goes on. She becomes stronger, she becomes more confident in herself, and the story ends up being a story of female empowerment, which I love in a book. There are some entangled issues with her sister and her niece, who is in fact her daughter. There are secrets surrounding the power that she has and runs in her family. Because it's book one in a series, I feel like we have a lot left to learn. The ending was a little bit of a cliffhanger, so I am intrigued to see where that's going to go. It was just overall a really interesting world with vampires and magic, and I gave it 4 stars and would definitely recommend it. And then final book of the month was Fever Dream by Elsie Silver. Now, I have seen so many mixed reviews on this. For me, 5 stars. I think I would say it's my favourite Elsie Silver that I have read. I did in fact tab it, and all these light pink ones are giggling and kicking my feet. I loved it. Maybe a slower burn than Elsie Silver's other books, which of course I'm a big fan of, so I liked that. I liked that you saw their relationship develop slowly, and they had a much more emotional connection rather than just a physical one, although they are very attracted to each other and there is plenty of banter and tension, which absolutely Elsie Silver is brilliant at. So the premise of the story is that our MMC, Emmett Bush, is taking part in a reality TV series that's going to be set on his ranch, or his grandparents' ranch, and Julia is working on set. I can't remember what her job is specifically, something to do with setting up scenes, something like that. I'm sure it's got an actual job title, but I can't remember it. So Julia Silver is, if you don't know Elsie Silver universe backstory, is the sister of Theo Silver, who is Emmett Bush's rival, because Emmett Bush is also a professional bull rider and his rival is Theo. So we've got forbidden love, forbidden romance, one because of the rival sister thing, and another because they're both working on the same set and he is supposed to be taking part in this reality dating show and isn't allowed to date outside of the pool of contestants. But I just had a great time. Another thing I've heard people say is they wanted the whole reality, to see more of the reality show part of the story, and that would have been interesting, don't get me wrong, to see more of him taking part in the dates with the other women, things like that, but I don't think it was necessary for this book. It wasn't part of their story and them together. Like, what he got up to on the dates with the other girls was kind of irrelevant to their actual relationship. I gave it 5 stars. I can't remember whether I said that. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely love the Brandt family. So the next book is Emmett's sister, and I think that's going to be professor student trope from what I've read in here and what I've seen online. But the family are so good and the grandparents are amazing, especially the grandmother. She was so funny. She has Crazy Clyde vibes. So when I read Wild Card, one of my favourite parts of that book was Crazy Clyde and his character, and I feel like she's got Crazy Clyde vibes. She will get up to the same sort of things that Crazy Clyde did, and she does in this do some quite wild things that I found hilarious. I would say though, I feel like you have to read the other books in the Elsie Silver world first before this one, specifically the Chestnut Hill series, because if you haven't met Emmett in Chestnut Springs, the fact that he's a bad guy won't make any sense, because he's supposed to be the player, the bad boy persona, and you see that in Chestnut Springs. You don't really get to see it in this book. So it tells you at the beginning that he's the bad boy persona, but you don't see it. So unless you know from the previous books, that part doesn't make sense. So I do think you have to have read Chestnut Springs first to really appreciate Emmett's character and his character development. So that is my June reading wrap up. I am going to film July's reading wrap up as soon as July is over and not put myself through this taxing process, testing my memory again. I will make sure I film it straight away. I hope, even though I struggled to remember quite a few things, that you have found some new books to add to your own TBR, and if you've read any of them and want to discuss any of them with me, you can comment down below or you can send me a message on socials. I love any excuse to chat books, so please message me. I would love to chat books with you. I'm filming a few different videos at the minute and I'm not entirely sure what order they're going to go up in, but I will say that I am trying to vlog my summer holidays. So these videos are going to be a mixture of everything: family time, cleaning, reading, maybe some DIY if I sort my life out and get sorted, which those are basically the things that I do. Those are basically the main key elements of my life. But I want to try and vlog the 6 weeks holidays because I struggle quite a lot mentally in the summer holidays. The lack of routine actually kills me every single time because I'm obviously not up with the kids for the school run. I don't go out of the house to work. I only work from home, and I always just really struggle with that lack of routine. So I'm hoping that this is a way to help me, and also a way to put out regular content in a less structured way. So it won't be like clean with me videos, but there will be videos with cleaning. There might not be a DIY, entirely DIY focused video, but there will be videos with DIY in. Does that make sense? So I want to do some of those, and then also obviously there's this video going up, and I also going to film a mid-year reading tag, but like I say, I'm not entirely sure on the order that they're going up, so you might have already seen some of those. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I would love for you to like and subscribe. It really helps me to grow my channel. I appreciate every single person that watches any of my videos. I hope I've not waffled on too long and you've made it to the end, but I'll be back soon. Bye!